Shift change is a sound we engineered out of the world. My badge kisses the reader, one dry tick, and the bubble drinks my vitals. Filters slip their rhythm into my heartbeat. The floor refuses to echo. The air edits my breath to a whisper that can't be misquoted by anything listening. That's the point of a containment bubble. Let silence carry the weight. Keep the gods quiet. Keep the guards quieter. Official paperwork calls this place a metaphysical pocket anchored to an old neutrino array buried in the Atacama. Off the record, it's a daycare for entities that can redraw physics when they throw a fit. I'm Containment Officer Cormac Fenlon, Level 3, penitent in a way the badge can't print. The job reads vigilant. Mostly, it's waiting for numbers that must never move. My perch is a B-shaped console halfway down a corridor, so long it convinces your inner ear the hall curves. Screens hang like windows cut into worse neighborhoods, flux plots, drift probabilities, and a single calm ribbon of blue labeled Subject 12, harmonic output. We don't use the guardroom name in incident reports. We think it, though, the Child King. Picture a porcelain hill asleep, a body moon pale and humming with inaudible weather. Limbs extrude when feelings rise, a sphere, a cone, an impossible pyramid balanced on its point, the way geometry might crawl if it learned about wanting. Give it joy, and the lights themselves will learn how to sing. Give it panic, and gravity forgets its lines. The lullaby that tucks it down isn't gears and bells, it's a crystal tower and nested coils weaving a three-note braid that mathematics understands better than ears do. While it sings, our world remembers how to hold still. Thinking here is hazardous work. Feeling is worse. Stray nouns become knives. I keep my mind trimmed to procedural verbs. They still leak around the edges. When they leak, they go to the same place. Highway 12 at night. Rain sawing the windshield. A car seat facing backward. Small shoes. LEDs that blinked every time she kicked impatience at me. Right back, I said. I wasn't. 5 years and change later. The sound of that lie ticks through my skull like a metronome. Half a shift in, the metronome gets a harmony. A child's giggle, thin to wind chime, taped and warped. The blue ribbon on my board stutters. One dip, two, and drops flat. Copper ghosts under the antiseptic scrub. Impossible. The air is stripped for a reason. I keep my voice clipped so the room can't chew it. Control, Fenlon. 12's harmonic just canceled. Verifying breach confirmed. Merritt Pike says in a baritone smoothed for instructional videos. Proceed to cell 12. Manual reset in the anteroom. I'll walk you. Pike runs systems from the safe side of every wall and calls a deity an unstable power source with a straight face. Somewhere, his stylus clicks like he's keeping time on my pulse. I rise. The light cools to red, the hard kind that stains metal. Bulkheads slam down behind me in tidy sequence. The door ahead stays open, status strip coughing up a new word none of our engineers coded. Forward. We don't project encouragement. We don't project anything. The bubble has learned an imperative voice. The hall behind is welded shut by protocol. The one ahead yawns like a dare. I move. The floor peels under my first step with a tacky kiss. Wrong. Panopticon walkways are chalk dry by design. I touch a seam. My glove lifts slick with something the color of cough syrup, hot sugar over solvent. Boots clatter up behind me. Officer Dole, new visor, new nerves, draws up, breath high. What's the readout? The surface under him quivers. Tiles go to pudding. Move, I tell him. Either he doesn't or the floor decides faster. It takes his right boot to the ankle, then the shin, then the hip, all in a polite, hungry pull. I grab his forearm. Cherry strings of gel suspend between us, wobbling like spun sugar. Training says, if the medium liquefies structural surfaces, you may sacrifice a limb to save a life. Training doesn't mention the sound a person makes when the floor chooses. We pull. The walkway tightens its mouth. The seal slides over his visor with a soft kiss. A last bubble trembles, pops. Smooth tile looks back, flawless as a denial. Panic wants vowels. I starve it. Control. One casualty. Fluidic surface, Sector 12. Logged, Pike replies, mercy measured in speed. Proceed. Manual reset panel is inside the ante-room. His stylus clicks again like punctuation. The word proceed hangs in the red light as if it were a rope. The corridor kinks right. A girl waits at the corner, 7 by her bones and patience, mustard raincoat cinched at the waist, lemon yellow barrette holding glossed hair. One sneaker gives a weak red blink every time she shifts. The ceiling lamps glare on everything but her. Light skates around her like she's collaged in. You shouldn't be here, I say, medic voice idle in muscle memory. She regards me with the mild interest of a child in a waiting room who has learned the room doesn't bargain. Then she steps into the wall and dissolves. The barrette lingers half a second longer than physics will sign for, then winks out. The bulkhead beside me shivers and sighs apart. Red bars the room like fever. Status strip letters swell to the size of a hand. Move forward, not protocol. Grammar play. The bubble took a taste of the imperative and found it sweet. I let the door swallow me before the floor can decide to. Inside the sector, the hush thickens. Tile seams drift, misaligned by a breath, like the world shifted and came back a millimeter off. A wall placard that used to say "Stay clear" softens, letters flowing as if someone warmed wax from behind. When they firm, they read, "Run," semantic bleed, when description gives up and starts publishing. Training taught me the term in slate blue fonts and 7-minute clips. It didn't teach me how it feels for language to lean its shoulder against your ribs. Overhead, a folded gantry remembers the shape of my old rig's hood and contorts to oblige, steel plates groaning into a jagged snout. Pike's voice drips in my ear, distances, loads, reassurance phrased as data. Each phrase scatters letters like cut glass. Shards ping off paneling. I slap the coil mic off my collar and yank until wire snaps. The silence that follows is thick and heavy and safer than the right words. The corridor squeezes to one-person throat. Metal ribs groan inward. Something gives me a door. An old maintenance cage shivers open, lit a sick yellow. Cables tick like impatient insects. The open route to the stabilizer narrows by the second. I picture Dole's last bubble, the girl's raincoat folding into alloy. A god turning over in sleep. I pick the smaller sin. The cage gulps me and seals. Chains shudder. The wall across from me thins to a gray window. Highway 12 appears in dash cam grain. Headlights shredding rain. The sedan pinned sideways across both lanes like a bad decision. The footage rewinds and plays, rewinds and plays. Remember, the room suggests without using a word. I count 12 in, 12 out. On 12, the window remembers it is metal. The lift opens on cold, not the scrubbed cold of conditioned air, library cold, the kind that sits in bone. A hand-painted placard greets me in letters that don't smear when you stare. Dead records, Vault 1. Under it, smaller text, paper endures what data cannot. Rows of steel cabinets stand 8 feet high, labeled in crisp block. Breach logs, P, series, stabilizer schematics, personnel, ends. The order of it bites like a rebuke after a hall that tried to teach verbs to the walls. A man rises behind a blotter positioned like a stage, gaunt, 60s, hair clipped to scalp, coat buttoned to the throat, brass nameplate, Crow, archivist. His smile is a practiced courtesy, the kind old buildings use when you enter a room that isn't yours. "Officer Fenlon," he says, as if taste testing the syllables. "You'll want the schematic." He's not asking. I nod because denial would be theater. He moves between cabinets without checking labels, returns with a plastic-sealed craft folder, red wax stamped with the authority crest. He sets it on the blotter and slides a ledger toward me, leather tired to softness. "Sign and date." I open to a page that already knows my hand. 5 lines carry my name in a script too close to mine to comfort. Dates scatter across years. Each entry ends the same, lost in action, stamped in authority red. "The breech loops," Crow says, voice careful as an archivist's fingers. "You come, you request, you vanish." We remember, because paper is hard to edit. I sign anyway because refusing feels like letting the room erase me early. He breaks the wax, frees a single page the color of old bones. The tower is sketched in clean lines. A hatch is marked at the base in red pencil. Manual heart, direct harmonic seed reset. In the margin, tiny serifed letters. Operator must maintain physical contact until curve stabilizes. Projected exposure, lethal. Every cycle they stamp that line, Crow says, and yet you still go. "What would you do?" slips out before I can put a leash on it. He studies me as if I were a radiograph and he had already found the fracture. "Hope it's not the same story," he says, and flips a thin dossier onto the blotter. It bears my name, blank inside. Outcome pending. Upshaft, a siren climbs like a thread pulled through a seam. Crow glances at a dusty gauge overhead. The needle swings down to a 5th. Containment field slipping. "You're short on time for a long choice." I tuck the schematic inside my vest. The lift gate jitters open like it disapproves of indecision. Crow sits, dips a stamp in blue ink he must save for days like this, and waits for the world to finish this page or start the next. The cage rises. The amber bulb sputters, dies, returns as a greenish leak. The air grows thin. I'm not alone. The girl sits cross-legged on the cage floor, raincoat puddled, barrette bright as a small sun. The schematic lies in her lap. My vest still weighs with its twin. She watches me without curiosity, as if the measurement has already been taken and filed. I kneel slow, careful not to spill thoughts. "I need that," I whisper, the sound small enough to hide behind a rib. My hand slides through her wrist like fog. Cold needles my bones. The paper is solid. It resists like reluctance. I curl my fingers and take it. She smiles, a teacher's first positive mark on a student failing the course, and dissolves, raincoat last. The cage opens on the same red the sector had left, only angrier. Numbers bleed down a status pane. 15%, 14. Pike's voice comes from the ceiling now, not my ear. "Facility broadcast. Sector implosion probable. Remote purge is green. Say the word, the corridor decides to be an open road. Strobes paint nothing that should be there. The sedan sits nose crumpled and steaming. A hinged door hangs open like a plea. A blink, and I'm strapped behind the wheel, the belt a cold band that tightens with each breath. The girl sits passenger, raincoat neat, sneaker, given a tired beep, barrette an asterisk you can't ignore. Sirens climb behind us. Our alarms braided into the lie until the lie tastes like truth. Say, "Initiate purge," Pike orders, and the instruction pours across the windshield in 10-foot letters, an exit sign for cowards. The belt ratchets. My lungs narrow to a straw. Glass flexes. The world waits for me to choose which line will write the ending this time. I choose mine. "Move," I say. The car exhales. The belt unlatches with a click polite enough to apologize. The windshield knits to a network of old scars. Panels peel back to steel, asphalt to tile. The corridor returns itself like someone restored a file from an honest backup. The floor stays dry, seams true. Lights hold steady. Far below us, a graph line climbs into sense. "Containment, Spike. Curve stabilizing," Pike blurts, and for the first time tonight, his voice loses its lab tone. I pull the broadcast earpiece from my collar and let it fall. The silence that replaces him has weight and permission. Ahead, the hall straightens like a ruler. At the far end, twin doors breathe apart in a measured exhale. Beyond them, the cradle waits. The crystal tower tilting like a fevered patient asking for water. I walk. The schematic thumps my chest in a heartbeat I can live with. My palm burns inside the glove where the paper's edge bit on the lift. I flex the hand until pain becomes heat, and heat becomes a simple fact without a name. The doors sense my badge from a meter out and slip a hand's width, enough to taste the air inside, ozone and something milk sweet left too long on the stove. I stop at the threshold. Behind me, the corridor holds its shape. In front, the room hums without music, a thought waiting to be finished. I breathe in once, out once, and let the building borrow nothing from either sound. Then I step through. The cradle receives me like a mouth that forgot how to speak and settled for light instead. Bone-white walls bow outward in a single seamless curve, no corners for echoes to hide in. The stabilizer tower leans off-center, a crystal spine that has taken a bad fall and is trying to remember how to stand. Heat shimmers close to it. The air tastes like ozone sharpened with milk, sweetened past safe. Silence here is thick enough to weigh. The lullaby is gone, and the room misses it the way a chest misses a heartbeat between beats. Subject 12 fills the far half of the oval. It is not a body you can map. Porcelain brightness, mounded like a small hill, surface breathing slow, every inhale smoothing, every exhale stippling with delicate crazing that vanishes when I blink. Where a face would be, emotion presses against the glaze, round bulge of delighted recognition, shallow furrow of doubt, a tightening spiral of distress. The same way hands show themselves through fabric when a child hides under a sheet. No eyes, no mouth, but feeling enough to crowd the room. Geometry learns to crawl when it dreams. A cylinder extrudes from the mound and ends in a perfect child-round sphere the size of my torso. Across from it, a second limb blooms into an obsidian pyramid balanced point down, defying weight and manners. They sway with infant certainty, curious and dangerous and fast. I check my breath, count 2 in, 2 out, and slide the schematic from inside my vest just enough to feel the paper's edge on my palm. Manual heart, base hatch, a socket. Maintain contact until curve stabilizes. Projected exposure, lethal. The bureaucracy chose precise words for the part that hurts. I holster my voice. Spoken language is shrapnel here. One word too bright and the walls will sharpen it. Inside the skull, I make a small room for a single idea and set it down where I can see it. Protect. The sphere twitches as if sniffing it. The pyramid tilts, slow, listening. A sound unspools from the mound, a giggle braided to wind chimes, 2 notes climbing until they vibrate the little bones in my wrists. The sphere lashes sideways faster than nerves. I drop by instinct, feel it shear the air above, hear the bass thud of it driving through a support strut behind me. Shards wheel out and evaporate mid-flight, so tidy it feels like apology. I don't run. Running would explain a kind of story I refuse to tell. The hatch at the base of the tower shows me its seam the way a closed eye betrays itself. Letters waver into sight on the panel, manual heart, then melt to a pale slurry that leaves no promise behind. I plant a knee on a white floor that looks like bone and feels like warm glass. Heat breathes from the hatch. I touch the edge of it with 2 fingers, then 4, then I pry, and the panel slides back as if relieved. The socket is a palm-deep cup lined in quartz, hairline fractures spidering its curve like frost. It emits a cold that isn't temperature, a pressure that wants my bones to answer in their native frequency. My hand trembles once, not from fear, but from the weight of choosing in a room that records choices like ledgers. I put my palm in. The frequency bites, not heat, not cold, a bright ache that runs up the fascia, stitches muscle to bone with a thread so fine it could be light. The tower's internal glow jumps, staggers, climbs 1 step of a scale I can't hear but can feel pressing against the teeth. Behind me, the mound reacts, a wash of surprise across its surface, limbs stuttering mid-arc. The giggle falters. Lines of prismatic stress streak the spire and then knit back, as if remembering a pattern. Protect, I think again, because repetition is a lullaby's backbone, not a command to you or to me, just a shape the room can hold without cutting itself. The first harmonic rises, it smears, slips, grips, climbs. I keep my palm flat, fingers flared as if I could get more of myself in contact by widening the map. The socket puckers around skin. The crystal hum starts low enough for my sternum to answer, a sympathetic ghost. The ceiling is a tight drum and something hits it far away. The entire chamber takes a deep, involuntary breath. Dust that didn't exist a moment ago sifts down and makes the light visible in sheets. I don't blink. The second harmonic waits at the top of a short, steep hill. Crow's ledger didn't need adjectives to mark it as the place operators die. Something in the porcelain shifts from curiosity to wanting. A new limb flowers from the mound, a prismatic blade thin as an accusation. It aims for the beating noise in me because infants reach for what is loud. The tip stops a coin's width from my chest. The heat off it makes my shirt pucker. I feel the stabilizer's tone falter, the way a breath catches over a sob. Protect, I think, and place the word with care between me and the limb, the way you might slide a pillow between a child's head and a hard floor. Protect the room from me from the room, this God from a story that makes it a monster. The blade trembles, unsure. The first harmonic settles. The second begins its slow traction along my bones. Cold builds under my palm until the skin there feels separate from the rest of me. A bright coin donated to a cause. Ceiling panels groan. A seam bows inward, holds with a sound like a held breath, turning ragged. Across the room, the warning placard flickers from blank to a smear of alphabetical ash, but the letters don't congeal into orders. The bleed is thinning. Good. Or we're past language. Good, too. My vision narrows to a long oval, socket, palm, red fissures inside quartz, knitting and unknitting. The limb hovers, then retracts the width of a thumbnail. The mound ripples with the almost shape of relief. On some deeper level, the child recognizes the pattern returning, recognizes being held. The giggle returns softer and falls into a cooing hum. 2 steps down, I taste copper. I know it isn't in the air. The bubble won't allow it. It's my mouth insisting on naming the pain. I don't give it the word. In here, nouns wear knives. The second harmonic clicks into place so calmly, I almost miss the exact moment the room agrees with itself. The pressure in my forearm changes from bite to brace. Things outside the cradle remember they are attachments to a whole. A relay resets, a distant door chooses to stay closed. The floor under my left knee decides to be a floor for another 30 seconds. 30. The third harmonic's curve is long and flat and cruel. The tower needs a steady human hand for longer than a human body wants to lend it. The quartz lining brightens like snow at noon. Heat travels up my tendons and sleeps behind my eyes. My breath wants to turn into a noise. I keep it a count. On the mound slope, near a tether that cracked and then hardened again, something yellow has been set down. No drama, no glow. A plastic barrette, lemon slice bright, lying as casually as a child's forgetfulness. It has no business on a god, but it sits there for me the way a lighthouse sits for ships that only know it as a rhythm. I make room for that image inside the word I've been thinking. Protect the living and the memory. Protect the story from the easy ending. Purge now. Write a tidy report. Move the red stamp to blue. The blue would be accurate. It would also be thin. Ceiling steel coughs again. A conduit bursts into a string of bright seed falls. Sparks scattering like thrown beads. The mound startles, delight tense to fear in one global shiver, and new shapes bud from its skin, toys flung by reflex. The third harmonic stutters. The cold in the socket spikes to a clean knife. Move, I whisper, because a verb can be a bridge if you keep it short and build it from bedrock. The shapes pause mid-bloom as if listening to an order that doesn't belong to power. They soften, reconsider, and retract like breath under a blanket. The pitch under my palm steadies. The third curve creeps into its last quarter. The room shakes out, a short-lived memory of being a hallway or a storm, then sanes. My hand is a single bright point around which the world arranges itself. 10. The mound's surface smooths to the roundness of sleep. The barrette sinks a fraction, like a small thing being tucked where it can't be lost. The ceiling holds its shape. Heat breaks on the back of my neck like surf and leaves an ache behind that will register as blister when there's time to look. 5. Pain hammers at the door asking me to call it by name. If I hand it a word, the walls will write it down in metal and glass. I leave it nameless and small. A braid of 3 notes finds itself, aligns and fuses. Light rushes up the tower, fractures closing to frost lines subsiding to clarity. The socket relaxes its hold on me with a release that is almost gratitude. The room steps down from fever into pearl. I pull my hand free and sit back on my heels. The skin of my palm is a map of bright islands. The glove sticks, comes away with a sound like paper peeled from glass. I can still feel the cord vibrating in my ulna. The mound exhales a full-body sigh that moves more air than lungs could. Limbs withdraw altogether like toys put away by a sleepy child who has decided suddenly and rationally that sleep is better than play. The lullaby returns, braided and whole, a tone too complex to hum that nonetheless maps onto breath if you know how to listen. Under it, quieter, I can hear the counterline we wrote into the math last year and never admitted out loud. A word that's only a shape. Protect ambient alarm bars in the corridor outside shift from red to amber. The door seams part the width of my palm, then wider, as if the building has remembered how to be polite. Containment nominal, comes Pike's voice, not intimate in my ear this time, but thinned to an intercom's distant humility. Manual reset, confirmed. He leaves the end of the sentence open. For once, he doesn't try to narrate the rest. I stand. My legs are the wrong length for a few seconds, the way they are after crouching to tie a child's shoe. The room smells like electricity and a kitchen left too long alone. I look once at the place where the barrette was and find nothing there but the faintest impression, as if a thumb pressed the glaze and then let it cool. The doors widen. The corridor beyond is a study in exhausted order. Buckled paneling rebent, hairline cracks sutured with clear resin, emergency strips shedding steady white. Far down, my B console glows in patient blues. The blue ribbon that was flat as a Dead Sea now rises and falls like a lung that has learned how again. I step over the threshold. Quartz grit ticks under my boot, shed by the tower when it broke and healed. Where Dole vanished, the tiles are perfect, no seam. The absence sits in the floor like a bruise the body pretends not to touch. I pause there long enough to make a space for the bruise. Not a word, not a vow, just the act of noticing without letting the room overhear. At the bulkhead, the badge reader wakes, scans me, prints a new line under my name. Level 4. Guardian? No fanfare, just a door that used to hesitate opening itself without complaint. I ride the lift up on a cushion of amber that cools towards sensible. In the roof of the cab, a speaker grates as if Pike means to say something and thinks better of it. The panopticon hums the way a sleeping animal does, fully present, fully elsewhere. When I pass the empty alcove near Sector 12, a patch of floor remains deliberately polished and untouched. The badge we pinned there catches light and gives it back without glare. I stop because it would be untrue not to, and let the lullaby farther below wash up around my ankles. It is steady enough now that the walls don't need to borrow it to hold their shape. Back at the console, the blue ribbon labeled Subject 12. Harmonic output has relearned the smooth rise and fall we file as normal. Readouts settle. Language on the status bands stops playing games and returns to the math that pays its rent. I peel my glove the rest of the way off and look at my palm. Blistering will bloom later. Right now the skin is glazed with a sheen that looks like a clear stamp. No letters, no crest, just the suggestion of a circle where a human hand loaned itself to a machine built to sing. I sit, not because the job is done, but because the bubble remembers routine the way a body remembers breath after drowning once. On the far screen, the corridor cameras replay the last 3 minutes, sped up past meaning, then drop them into storage. Paper endures what data cannot. Crow's sign wasn't wrong, but sometimes data keeps faith too. Somewhere on a deck I can't see, a child of porcelain turns a little deeper into sleep. The lullaby weaves its 3-note braid and holds. Above it, new traffic chimes open and close across the grid. Repair rosters begin to repopulate with names. Somewhere in a supervisor's queue, a form auto-fills a new line under mine. Status: pending. I don't touch the coil mic. I don't speak. I keep the one word that worked warm in my chest and let the bubble hold the rest. 3 weeks is a long time if you measure it by alarms that don't go off. The panopticon breathes again, slow and steady, like a big animal that decided to keep living. Field coils wear fresh tuning collars. Resin plates stitch hairline fractures into a pattern that looks almost decorative if you don't know who caused them. Techs move with the reverence of people repairing a church with wrenches. The air holds its careful nothing. Floors are chalk dry. Language minds its manners. Below, Subject 12 sleeps. The lullaby returns its braid of 3 notes, and under it, a human line we folded into the math like a promise you whisper through a door. Protect. The chord has no vowels, but the room understands it the way a body understands a pulse. They tried to reassign me topside. Clear air, no gods, windows that open. I signed the acceptance form and let it sit on my tray until it went soft at the corners. Then I turned it in with the refusal clipped to the top. The directorate stamped it approved/against recommendation and didn't ask for a speech. That passed for mercy. Pike found me the next morning in recovery, still in the hospital shirt you can tie one-handed. He came without his lab coat, as if the absence could count as warmth. A clipboard waited under his palm, 2 pens clipped to the binding like tame insects. I reviewed the telemetry, he said, eyes on the numbers as if they were a horizon he could trust. We'll draft a policy for live operator overrides. Purge remains last resort. I was wrong to... He paused, chewed the word as if it had barbs. To index toward demolition. That's an apology, I said, careful not to let the room make a weapon out of it. It's a plan, he said, which was as close to a confession as he allows himself, and slid the clipboard over. His signature sat under a paragraph that would make it harder for the next man to call a god a battery, and the people in the halls fuses. I signed. He did not flinch when my bandaged hand left a damp half-moon on the paper. After he left, he forgot his stylus, the favorite that clicks like a metronome. I kept it for a day, listening to its small, well-behaved sound keep time with the lullaby below, then set it on his console before a shift and watched him find it like a man recognizing his own heartbeat. In dead records, Crow replaced a row of red stamps with a single blue word beside my name. Survived. He waited for the ink to dry with both hands on the blotter as if the ledger might buck. When it didn't, he made a neat notation beneath status pending. He looked up and smiled in the exact measure of a man who knows what paper can and can't do. We keep 2 columns for you, Officer Fenlon, he said, the factual and the hopeful. Thus far, they are aligned. I nodded. He didn't offer the ledger for me to sign again. Paper knows when to stop asking for proof. There's a memorial now near Sector 12, as plain as a held breath. Dole's badge is pinned to the wall at eye level, polished by hands that won't leave oil. No plaque. The floor patch beneath it has been left deliberately bright. A small, smooth lake the cleaning bots steer round. I stand there some nights and let the nothing in the air weigh the same as something, and I try not to give the quiet any words it can't bear. On my first night back, the badge reader blinked my name and added a new line. Level 4, Guardian, no chime. Just the door opening without its old hesitation. The console still curves in that friendly B. Screens still float like windows cut into worse weather. The blue ribbon labeled Subject 12, harmonic output, rises and falls like a sleeping lung. The graph is neither miracle nor miracle's absence. It's a job well done and waiting. There are recruits now. They stand too straight and apologize to the floor with every footfall. They call me sir, as if the word could brace them against whatever they think I am. We walk the hush-lit corridors. In the hour the overheads dim toward silver. I teach them how to carry their thoughts like unlit matches. I teach them that nouns are edged and verbs are bridges. I teach them the only rule that matters. Your mind is part of the room. Keep it honest. What about courage? One asks, because they are all the same age in the places that count. Courage is a kind of silence, I tell him. It's what you don't say when you want to say the wrong thing very loudly. They laugh, the careful laugh of people trying to understand the joke before it becomes instructions. I don't tell them about the highway. I let the floor have its chalk-dry dignity and the air its well-earned nothing, and we practice standing still in a way that counts as listening. Some nights, mid-round, I hear a faint chirp at the edge of what can be called sound, not the iron taste of alarms, a small friendly beep, there, then gone. The first time it came, I turned fast enough to make the cameras worry over my pulse. Now I let it pass through without chasing it down the hall like a dog after a shadow. There are echoes in here that deserve to be left at peace. There are others that deserve to be kept alive by not naming them. The panopticon remembers stories. It writes them into habits, into the tempo of doors and the cadence of lights. After the breach, the building started timing its bulkheads to a pattern I recognized, a beat that lands like the word move, set to a metronome the size of a world. I can watch a tin strip flash forward in the corner of my eye and not feel ordered around. It's not an imperative anymore. It's us keeping time with each other. I limp less every night. The burn on my palm healed into a circle of skin too smooth to be mine. In certain lights, it looks like a seal impressed without ink. I don't ask what it says. The room would love the chance to read it out loud for me. On the last night of my first cycle back, I take the elevator down without telling anyone and stand outside 12's anteroom with my hands at my sides. I don't badge in. I just listen. The lullaby holds steady through concrete, through steel, through everything we use to pretend the world stays assembled by its own will. 3 notes braided, human counterline woven inside like a seam you can't see until it keeps a tear from widening. I think of the girl in the raincoat and the lemon-yellow beret. I think of the Highway 12 that is not a corridor and the corridor that pretended to be a highway until I asked it not to. I think of the word that worked and the words that would have broken us. Protect, I say, but only in my head, because saying it out loud might make it thinner. The building doesn't need to hear it. I do. On my way back, I cut by the memorial without deciding to. The floor's bright patch holds my reflection like a coin. The badge glints. There are no flowers in here. The room would turn them into instructions or evidence. There is only the knowledge of a man's weight, the old work of coming and going, the vacancy that remains faithful to its shape. I remember, I almost say. The silence makes the sentence for me and files it where it belongs. At the console, Pike pings the auxiliary channel, a courtesy he saves for after midnight. You on? I'm on. Telemetry's clean, he says. Feels like cheating. Feels like practice paying off, I answer. We hold there, both of us listening to something we can't admit we listen to. He taps his stylus once, twice, then stops himself. You know, he adds, the way a person says a thing when he's checked it against a dozen ways it could go wrong. We could have purged. We didn't, I say, because both halves of the sentence need a place to live. He exhales a small laugh that I don't think the room will catch. "We didn't," he repeats, and cuts the line clean. I open a blank incident template and type 3 words in the remarks field. No action taken. Then delete them, not because they aren't true, but because they aren't the right kind of true. Some outcomes don't need a retelling that reduces them to boxes ticked. Some do. I leave the field empty. Pending, the ledger would say. Paper endures what data cannot. Sometimes leaving a space is how you keep a story from closing its own throat. Dawn on the Atacama is a pale rumor by the time the lights shift from silver to sensible. The overnight squad makes that small, unmistakable sound as they decouple from the bubble and remember their bodies are small and finite and sufficient. My shift ends the way the good ones do, with nothing to report and everything to keep. At the threshold, I pause and look back down the long curve of the hall. White strips glow, doors breathe. Somewhere far beneath, porcelain dreams. I know in the ordinary way that I will keep walking this measure until the day I can't. I know in the better way that endings deserve to be earned, and sometimes earning them means staying to witness the middle again and again until the room believes you. People ask, quietly and outside the log, why I limp toward 12 every night. I tell them the bubble remembers stories, and I'm learning to write better endings. They nod as if I've given them a trick. It isn't a trick. It's a discipline. It's a hand left in a socket while the world tries to rattle you loose, and the word you hold still under your tongue. On my way out, the badge reader flashes my name and the quiet promotion again, like an old refrain that doesn't mind repeating itself. Beside it, the panel shows a tiny maintenance icon that looks nothing like a lemon slice. I smile anyway. The room notices and fails to make a weapon of it. That feels like progress. The elevators are slow in the dawn hour. In the soft pause between floors, the bubble hums something that is not a lullaby and not a warning. It sounds like a place remembering it can house both grief and sleep. I rest my blistered palm against the rail and let the metal take my temperature like an old friend. When the doors open, the world smells like dust warming. The sky is a color naked eyes can't keep. The neutrino dish a kilometer off catches light it can't keep either, and throws it down the line anyway because throwing light is what it was built to do. I step through the quiet. Behind me, the panopticon keeps its chord. Ahead, a road doesn't try to be anything else. Somewhere, deeper than maps, a small yellow barrette sinks into porcelain and stays. Somewhere else, a ledger waits with 2 columns and a stamp that won't be needed if we keep choosing the right verbs. I don't know if the story ends here or just learns to breathe. I know what I want the room to remember when the next night turns over. That we were careful with our words. That we made a place where silence could mean safety. That we kept a promise without saying it aloud. I go home long enough to change, to drink water, to let the desert sun print a temporary proof on my skin that the world above still believes in mornings. Then I come back before anyone asks me to, and the badge ticks, and the bubble drinks my pulse, and the floor refuses to echo, and the chord holds. Better endings are not louder. They're just truer. They are what we build when we choose not to look away. They are what a room can become when it learns your thoughts are part of it and you keep them honest. The door opens without complaint. I step in.